Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to another Create Sim for the Disney save. Today we are working on the rest of the main Greek gods from the previous video. If you missed it, I did make Olympus from Hercules. It's a giant speed build that's floating in the sky and one of my favorite builds I have ever done. So please, if you missed it, check that one out first. And then there is a Create Sim to go along with that for all of the main gods that will be living in that household. But because there are so many Greek gods, and there's like 12 main ones in particular, we had to make a second household. So the original idea was that these guys would also be living on Olympus. And I was essentially going to be making 2 tiers of bedrooms. There would be one floor with about 8 bedrooms and then another floor with 7 or 8 more bedrooms. And I would do it as a rental so that you could have either household that you wanted, either set of Greek gods, and just kind of switch back and forth between the two depending on what you wanted to do. But I'm also not really implementing the rental lot type from For Rent into my save file right now because there are so many bugs from For Rent and people have been experiencing corruption and game file problems, and they are not totally fixing it. They have put out some patches, but I know it's not completely fixed, and so I'm just a little bit scared, if I'm honest, to start putting rentals in when I know that it can cause those problems. So I'm holding back from doing that for right now. But regardless of that, when I originally built Olympus, I quickly realized I was not going to be able to fit the mass amounts of bedrooms that I needed to fill the first set of Greek gods, which was an 8 sim household, and now this one, which is 7 more additional sims. It's just way too many, and there wasn't enough space because of like the floating nature of the build and everything that I had going on with that. If you want to hear more about it, definitely check out the speed build first and that other creative sim because I do talk a little bit more about it. So I basically had to decide if we were going to continue to do the Greek gods, but also which ones don't make the cut of the top 8 or so, I would say. Now, this is definitely based off of Hercules himself. So Zeus and Hera and anybody that's directly related to Hercules, they're going to make the cut in that original family tree and that family household just because that makes the most sense. And then we have some of the other ones that I just think, like, of course they're all important, but these guys are a little bit lower tier, lesser known. They're not like the main ones you think of when you think of Greek mythology. I think there's a little bit of a mental tier list. You tell me who your like absolute top tier is, but I think we can all kind of agree that Zeus sits at the top and then it kind of works its way down from there. So these are the ones that got relegated to this secondary household either because they are not actually a part of the main 12 or they are just not as important within the stories of Hercules or I guess a little bit of Greek mythology as well. So that means starting out with Apollo. He is kind of unrecognizable in this video and I do want to specify that that first sim is Apollo. I think that Disney went a really strange direction with his design choice. I kind of love it because it's not what you would think Apollo to look like at all. I guess I really just picture somebody that has like a bright red or orange skin tone and like glowing eyes. Like he is supposed to be god of the sun and god of fire. So doing the dark blue skin tone definitely threw me off, but he is like this dark blue muscular, armor-ready guy, and that's the version I had to make because we're going off of Hercules. So I started with him. He is a twin with the second sim I'm making in today's video, which is Artemis. Artemis and Apollo are twins, and they are both, according to my family tree, going to be children of Zeus with no listed mother. This will make them a little bit more removed from the family as well, but I also think that's sort of true to Greek mythology as well. They don't have Hera as a mother, so that was my attempt to remove them as well, the same way that I did with Athena. Now, I did create Artemis based on Apollo's genetics since they are twins, which makes them twins genetically within the save file, but they don't really look like one another, and I think that's fine considering that twins often cannot look like one another in real life. At this point in the save file, we do have quite a few sets of twins or triplets, but we don't really have very many that are technically twins, but not very great resemblances of one another. So that is a cool feature of this household. Artemis also is wearing the women's version of the Greek armor costume from the Halloween stuff pack. I originally did not want to put her in that. She's so fierce looking, and she she is the goddess of so many things. She's the goddess of wild animals and the hunt and wilderness. She is the one that is often depicted with a bow and arrow. She's someone that you would take super seriously and you wouldn't want to mess with at all. And I wanted her to be perceived as like kind of dangerous, kind of mystic, and someone that, again, you just wouldn't want to cross paths with in a negative way. So I thought that the costume like kind of took away from that in a sense, but then I put her in it and I just loved it so much. And she'll be probably one of the only Sims in the save file to ever wear it. And because Apollo is her twin and he wears the masculine version of that same costume, it just worked out really well. I was trying to piece together some brown and green combos that are similar to the one that is drawn in the Disney film for her, but they just didn't work out and it didn't give her that fierceness and that like battle readiness that I was really going for. So even though the costume is a little bit funny in my opinion, it's not as like convincing as the masculine version, I still think it works in this instance. And I love how she turned out. She is one of the most beautiful of all of the Greek gods that I've done. Very exciting to have her in the save because she is also a favorite of mine. Next up we have Demeter. Demeter is the goddess of the harvest, and she is also unique amongst the Sims, the Greek god Sims that I'm adding in, because she is a removed family tree Sim. So Demeter and her daughter Persephone will be unrelated to any other Sims in the Greek god households. That is due to her daughter. Her daughter has a very famous romantic relationship with Hades, and I knew that there would be people that wanted to play that storyline. You can go the direction, like way back when I did Forgotten Hollow and Hades was originally added into the save, there were so many people that requested I put in some kind of romance between Hades and Maleficent, because they do have some connections to having romance with one another based on like some Disney TV shows like House of Mouse and things, but also very famously Descendants has Hades and Maleficent having their child together. So there is like a romantic thing going on between those two characters in the Disney sense, but in the Greek god stories, everybody knows that Persephone ends up with Hades and they have one of the most famous romantic relationships in all of Greek mythology. So I knew I had to find a way to keep that really family friendly and try to include that. So Persephone had to be removed from the family tree, and that meant that her mother Demeter being removed made the most sense. So those two are like a little dynamic duo that just will be their own thing. So now we have the Zeus family line, we have Hera's family line, we have Persephone and Demeter as their own, and then Hermes and Aphrodite are also singularly on their own. So there's so many different ways that you could explore different relationships that still kind of keep it interesting and clean amongst the different characters. I could very easily make Demeter a plant sim, and I think because of the green skin right away you would think to do so. She just screams plant sim also because of the nature of like what her godhood is, but I just hate so much that you can't use any other hair for plant sims other than the one shorter like leaf looking hair that's programmed in the game for plant sims. And I think if I made every one of my green slightly garden plant leaning sims into plant sims and they all use that same exact hairstyle, they start to resemble one another and it makes it like not as fun. So like I mentioned in the previous video, I'll be focusing a lot on trying to have them have special traits and have skills and knowledge that really relate to each of their individual godhood much better, that I think will convey the idea of what these characters are supposed to be better than like straying amongst like trying to do a plant sim here or there, or maybe making one an alien so that they can do X, Y, and Z. They're all going to be spellcasters except for Poseidon, and then I'll go from there trying to make them unique even amongst one another since they're all going to be spellcasters. Persephone is the goddess of spring. She is shown in the film having this gorgeous huge blonde hair with flowers in it, and that meant that that was such an easy pick for me in Create-A-Sim because we have this lovely hair from Sulani that I was so excited to properly use. I have given this hair to Moana on various versions of like different secondary outfits, but it takes away the texture of Moana's hair a little bit too much for my liking, so I didn't pick make it as like a primary choice, but for Persephone, it works flawlessly. It's exactly right for her. And she also sports a city living dress, which is kind of unique considering I don't use city living very often in terms of the Create-A-Sim, mostly because a lot of that pack is very modern and we just haven't gotten to too many modern Disney films quite yet. It'll definitely come in handy a lot more when I do get to the city living world and some of the other modern movies when we do like Sam by Shuno and things like that. But for now, I haven't used too much of city living, and I just thought this dress was so fitting for her with the cutaways and the layering and the flower detailing. It really works for her character. Let me know down in the comments below which romance are you more interested in pursuing if you do want to mess around with some of the Greek gods. Are you probably going to go with Hades and Persephone, or are you more of like a Maleficent and Hades type of person? I did make Mal from Descendants. She is a bonus sim that's on my gallery only for Forgotten Hollow specifically, and she is based after Maleficent's genetics but not Hades' genetics. So I did kind of like tie it all in together. However, she's not actually in the save file because I do kind of consider Descendants to be unofficially non-canon. I'm mostly focusing on Disney animated films, so I don't do like too much crossover, but there are hints here and there for like things like that. So let me know what your thoughts are. Like, what is the direction you're most likely to take? Next up is Dionysus. He is the god of wine, and he's probably the one that, again, like I couldn't really hit it perfectly with the skin tone he was supposed to be. He's supposed to have like a deep red wine colored skin tone, and really the only option would have been to give him that same fiery one that I gave to Ares in the previous video, but it just wasn't right. So rather than do like the red wine, I went for the purpley grape sort of shades and leaned into that a little bit. He is also going to be a son of Zeus without a mother listed, which makes him not Hera's son. I have been messing a little bit around here and there with the ages of these sims. I think that what I'm going to do is base it off of how they present themselves in the film. Like, some of these guys just look a little bit older than others. Some of them I think want to look like adults. They want to have that more mature sort of look. And then some of them just present a little bit younger, like Artemis and Apollo give younger adult vibes and Persephone gives young adult vibes. So I'm going to play around here and there with like their ages and try to see how much of the family tree I can get to function naturally, but I will be using MCC to try and cross the family tree over despite the ages, because basically what happens is if you try to like make it naturally, so if I had Dionysus and Zeus in the same household and I wanted to connect him and have Zeus be his father, because they're both adult sims, it literally won't let you, which I find to be such a strange thing, because there's so many reasons that your sims could just not age, or you have maybe like a potion that they've taken or something. So if you're making them and create a sim, they will not let you make sims that are too close in age have relationships that I guess wouldn't make sense to real life, but you can use MCC to cheat them in. So that's my plan eventually. I have dabbled with this a little bit just to see if it would work out, and it is working, but it is definitely because of like the nature of how many sims I'm trying to mess with, and because there ends up being step siblings and half siblings, it's getting a little complicated, and I think the game is having a hard time recognizing it, so I might have to play around with it a bit to get it to work the best that I possibly can. But the relationships that I have tried to implement so far, most of them have worked. I just have like a few things that I have to kind of work on. So I'm letting all of you guys know this now so you know how the family tree was supposed to be lined up. However, if the game doesn't let me, I'm gonna have to tone it back just a little bit. And that was originally going to be it for the video, but then one of my patrons pointed out that I was technically only missing one of the 12 Greek gods, the last one being Hestia. She almost got skipped because she's not shown in the Hercules film to my knowledge. I had a really hard time finding reference for her, but there is definitely episodes of the show that are dedicated to her, and because she is the only one that got cut, it just made sense to add her in, even though she's not like a primary character. So she is the goddess of the hearth and the home. And in the show, she is shown with like fruit in her hair. She has a really unique hairstyle actually that I really would have loved to have been able to fully implement, but I ended up just going with some sort of an updo for her, and then a orangey, planty leaning outfit with the orange dress and the plant leaf bracelets from Island Living. She kind of gives the same vibes as Demeter and Persephone, and I am going to either make her related to Demeter and make them sisters, or make her Hera's sister. That way Hera has a little bit more going on for herself also. I don't think I could make all three of them siblings, because now that I think about it, it would make Persephone, like, I don't know, I think that would get funny. I'm like sitting here trying to think about if I did that correctly. So I think she would either have to be, Hestia would either have to be Hera's sister or Demeter's sister. So one or the other. Let me know which one you think I should go with. I think she gives a little bit more Demeter vibes, and that way Persephone has an aunt, which would be kind of cool. That is actually the last of the Hercules content for the Disney save. I know it has seemed like so much, but we did have like quite a few builds and a lot of characters to add in, and I'm happy to be moving on. The next build for the save file is going to be a replacement lot. Back when I did the I Won't Say I'm in Love wedding venue, I'm going to be creating a brand new wedding venue for that same lot as a second option. Based on a completely different film though, it'll be a brand new film for the save file. And let me know which one of the Greek gods between this household or the previous was your absolute favorite. I'm excited to be moving on to new movies and new things. We've got a couple more films to do for Tartosa, so hopefully you guys stick around for that. If you'd like to support the Disney Save on Patreon, you can do so by clicking the link in my description box down below or the one at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you in the next one.